After 6 years of waiting, guys, Peace Talks is finally here, and we're going to talk about it in depth. Let's get into it. Hey, what's up, bookworms and Dresden fans? Mike back one more time to talk about the Dresden Files, and this time the long-awaited release of Peace Talks is here. This is going to be a spoiler discussion, so if you haven't read the first 15 or now 16 Dresden Files books, I would turn back now, bookmark this video, and come back afterwards. I did do a non-spoiler one if that's what you're looking for. But do not watch this. You haven't waited this long to have some dude with Wi-Fi ruin this story for you. So if you haven't read the book yet, please wait, read the book, and then come back and let's talk about it afterwards. I was lucky enough to receive an advanced reader copy from Penguin Random House in exchange for an honest review, and I am so thankful for that. I want to thank them. Thank you guys very much for giving me that opportunity, because it was a blast. I had a great time, and we're going to get into it now. So again, spoilers for all of Peace Talks here. If you haven't watched my Dresden reviews yet, they're all right here, and they are all spoilers. So there we go. There's your warning. Let's go ahead and kick it off. It starts off with with Thomas telling Harry that Justine is pregnant, and not only is that awesome, but it's also very scary, because apparently, the baby is going to feed off of her, and apparently only 50% of human hosts live right after delivery of a white court baby. So obviously this is right off the bat. Okay, well, this is a little different. It isn't quite to the level of like a Changes or something, but okay. I asked for some development for Thomas, and I feel like we're getting it here right off the bat. They run into Ramirez, and Ramirez is actually quite hobbled. He's using a cane now. I do know that this is from one of the short stories that I haven't read, so I will take my lashes now. Basically, if you watch my Peace Talks wish list, I took a Jesus of Nazareth beating with my lashes of how much I got whipped for not reading the short story. So again, that's on me. I had actually intended to read them before I got this arc, but that kind of took precedence. But I'm going to read them soon, so there we go. But he does tell Harry about the convocation the Fomor have asked for, which is the Peace Talks in the title here. So the Fomor want peace with the rest of the accorded nations, and they have actually been the ones who have set up the meeting. So didn't expect that. Again, guys, remember, I had literally a day between Skin Game and this, so I didn't have numerous years of speculating on what this stuff was about. I didn't even watch that trailer until 60 seconds before I started reading the book. So I didn't have a lot of time to decipher what the actual plot of this book was going to be. So it was all fresh to me. We do cut to Harry. He's staying at Molly's apartment, which is guarded by the Zvartovs. I hope I'm saying Zvartovs right. That's how I kept saying it the whole time. Really funny reference to All of Your Base Are Belong to Us, if you know that joke. And it's just right away, I feel like, okay, we've got Butcher hasn't lost his knack for his really good pop culture references, because it's All of Your Base joke, and even Harry's like, I don't even know what that means. And it's just, it's fun when he uses a reference and not even he knows what it means. They did one with Firefly a couple books back too, with the special hell. Really good stuff here. So Butcher is in just mid-season form here right away, but we get to see what's going on with Harry's two daughters now. We got is it pronounced Bonnie? They call her Bonnie. Is it Bonea? I'm not really sure on this. Again, just usual disclaimer for these: I do not listen to the audiobooks, so I do not know, and I didn't get an advanced thing of the audiobook, so I couldn't listen to it anyway that way. But basically, that's Lash and Harry's parasite baby. But her Aunt Maggie are making pancakes, and it's super cute. She tells Maggie she has like 137 or 237 pancake recipes for her and stuff. So I would have liked to have seen more of this, but I feel like this is a part one of a two-part story, so there might be more of it. But it is really brief, but what is there is adorable. I I wish I could make food with my kids. All they do is make a big mess. But it's cute. It's really cute. That's all I can say as a father of young children. It's really cute stuff. And anytime Harry and Maggie interact, I'm just like, oh, just straight. It's just adorable. I don't have another word for it. But Ebenezer shows up and tells Harry that the council wants him gone because of a conflict of interest with him now working for the fairy court. But he suggests that someone close to him is going to betray him. And I'm going to say it right off the bat. Ebenezer, have we not seen him since Changes? I was trying to think about this. I feel like it's been since Changes we've seen him. Again, maybe this is something in the short stories I missed. This dude seems usually more pissed off than he usually is. He's never been like what I would call calm, but he just seems like he is just way more hot-headed in this book. And it starts with because he sees Thomas and he doesn't like vampires. That's not a secret, right? Yeah, so Ebenezer's are like already just in a rotten mood, and it continues the whole book. And I don't think it's just because he saw Thomas. There's something greater going on, I think. And again, I don't know if that's something I missed from a short story, so please enlighten me if so. I mean, if you don't think that there's anything different with him, yeah, speak up. That's fine. That's fine. I never got Ebenezer as really just already like going from like 0 to pissed off in 0.1 second. I've always thought that Harry always would kind of give him some lip, and he would always be cool about it. But now he just seems ready to throw down this whole book. Okay, so where we're going with that. But let's see here. He's not only that, he's also pissed that Maggie is living with Harry and not with the Carpenters with the protection. And for lack of a better phrase, he basically tells them, yeah, anyone who gets close to you dies. And I'm like, that's not going to go over well. So I understand, he's got a grandfather's concern, or great-grandfather's concern for Maggie. But, I feel like the way he's being with Harry here, I don't feel like he's seeing Harry's side of it at all. But, again, it's not like Harry makes great decisions. So I see where he's coming from. It's one of those things where you see family fight and you're guys, don't fight. That's kind of how it feels. It feels like every time they get together in this book, I'm like, how long until one of them throws a punch? That's how it felt the whole time with them. And it starts right away here from the beginning. But when we get to Murphy, she's still recovering from her injuries from the last book that Nicodemus gave her. And their relationship, I said I would like this to be a full-on relationship, and it appears to be that way now. I feel like when you're at that age, you don't really use the term, oh, that's my girlfriend, that's my boyfriend. I really use that phrase. But they definitely seem like a functioning couple at this point. Everyone's acknowledging them pretty much as a couple. And I feel like neither one of them are denying it anymore. And not only are they kissing, Harry's afraid of hurting her in her fragile state with if they decide to do the deed. And Murphy basically tells him to get over it. So good stuff. Good stuff. Again, I said I feel like the dialogue, not only what I said in my non-spoiler review was I feel like that Butcher's romantic dialogue has gotten better, but to me it's how he describes how they act to each other without saying anything at all. To me, that is someone who understands when two people are just crazy gaga about each other, about how and you don't even have to say anything. And I think Butcher's such a good writer, he's able to get that across. And he gets that across in all the scenes with Harry and Murphy in this one. Rudolph is back, shows up with his partner, Bradley, I believe it was. They say they have incriminating photos of Murphy and Dresden from the heist in the last book. And they deny it, of course. A lot of Bradley seems to be the more level-headed of the two, obviously, but Rudolph he's been a scumbag for as long as I can remember. God, how long has he been here now? Was he all the way back at Full Moon? I can't remember, but he's always just been, what you expect internal affairs to be, right? That's just kind of how I see him, but he's basically just kind of like the looming threat to this whole book. Not a ton comes out of it, at least in this story. But he's there the whole time to be like, hey, we've got this over you, and you're going to do time, basically, I feel like is what he's telling both of them. Harry encounters Laura Wraith with Mab after this in the, what's he calling it? The Monster-mobile? It's no Blue Beetle, but it's quite fun. But Mab says that Laura is owed 3 favors, one which she has already provided, and she leaves up to Harry to to do the bidding of the other two, no matter what they are. Harry lists a couple of things. What if she wants me to do this? And Mab says, well, you're going to do it, basically. The whole thing of anytime Harry's like, why am I going to do this? And Mab is like, because you're my knight. And like I said in the last review, it's because Stone Cold said so, basically. Anytime he questions Mab's will, she gives him the flat out, because Stone Cold said so. And I think he just needs to just get used to it, because I don't think you're going to get a different answer. But on the way home, Harry finds that the building is on fire, and it's not his fault. It is in lockdown. He meets a Svartalv in there named Ivana, who shows him that there has been a murder, and an attempted murder on the leader of their order. And the person that was responsible is Thomas. And he sees Thomas, and Thomas is like beaten beyond recognition, like beaten so bad he can't even speak. He tries to talk, and he can tell, Harry can tell that what he's saying is Justine. He wants him to look out for Justine. He's like, of course I will. And it's just like, wow, what's going on here? So yeah, Thomas is facing probable execution here. And Harry has time because, they're going to need an emissary. But yeah, he's going to have to investigate what happens. And I feel like, hey, cool, we're going to go back to the kind of the roots here. We're going to kind of go back to the case kind of thing, the detective work, which I feel like is kind of taken a back seat probably the last 4 or 5 books, which is fine. I didn't want to get in formulaic, but it is fun, like a nice little throwback. So this investigation's in its early stages, and again, he's confronted by Ebenezer, and they start arguing again about Maggie and Thomas. And I mean, they're to the point where they're about to throw down, and they both start drawing in power. They're ready to freaking fight. And I'm like, stop fighting! Why are Mom and Dad fighting? It's every time like that. That's how I feel. And but then they're attacked by outsiders, and so that kind of blocks that little fight there. But Harry's able to banish them, and Ebenezer insists that he does not get involved with Thomas's predicament. He just can't say it enough. Harry says, get bent, and Ebenezer walks away for now. So that brings me to the point of there's this thing called conjuritis in this book. If this is something that's been in the series before, I missed it. But basically, Harry keeps having like these violent sneezes, and every time he does, it results in conjuring random objects with like tons of ectoplasm dripping from his nose. It's just disgusting. But sometimes he can call some creepy crawlies by accident. So this happens more than once in the book. And what's kind of amusing about it is when he's talking to Butters about it, and Butters is always insisting, I'm not a doctor, I'm a mortician. And so Butters just gives him some antihistamines. And I'm laughing about it, but I'm like, it's not a bad plan, if you're not sneezing, maybe you can't be doing this. But Harry meets with Laura to discuss the options to help Thomas, and well, she has none. She knows a Weird Guild is just going to basically admit guilt, and anything else is just going to lead to war, which is going to lead to war with all of the accorded nations, and she doesn't want to do that. So this leaves Harry to be, kind of look for another solution right now. And this is when he's confronted by 4 members of the council. Who are they? Wild Bill, Chandler, Yoshimo, and Ramirez. And it turns out that that Ramirez put a tracking spell on Harry with using that ink that that Peabody used a few books back. And of course, he's pissed off about that because he's like, you remember what happened with Peabody. But they're concerned because Yoshimo does like I don't even know what that spell is on him, but it reveals that he's been with someone within the last couple of hours, and they demand to know who it is because they think it's Laura, right? So they think he's turned heel. He's with Laura now. So I get it, but I also get why Harry's like, that's none of your damn business, right? So it's one of those things where you can tell that they don't trust him, obviously. I mean, they're talking about booting him off the White Council. The tensions have been growing forever in these books. And now it seems like they're pretty much at a breaking point. And, he pretty much levels with Ramirez. And Ramirez just gets to the point where he's just like, okay, I'll tell you what, just watch yourself. And go ahead and meet us with McCoy at the security check before the opening ceremonies. And that's when Harry decides he's going to summon Molly. He asks for her help with Thomas, and she says that, well, that comes with an obligation that no matter what, you have to repay. So she's full on in Winter Lady mode here, and I love it. I don't feel like Molly and Harry have a ton together in this book, but when they are, it matters, and it matters big time in the climax here. So Harry feels pretty much out of options, so he goes to see Michael. That's what we always do. We go see Michael. Michael's always going to give you the wisdom, always going to give you the knowledge, right? And he drops the faith bomb on Harry. You got to have faith in yourself and those around you, and that encourages him to finally get some sleep. Because you know Harry, I can't go to sleep. There's too much to do. Michael is just the only one who will flat out say, you know what, you might need sleep later, and I might have the opportunity to do it. So he convinces him to get some sleep. But he does also ask about Molly, and this was something I brought up on my wish list here. I was concerned that at this the way everybody reacted to that video was that Molly had told Michael and Charity about her becoming the new Winter Lady in one of the short stories, and I had missed it. But I know apparently she still has not told, and Michael is just kind of inquiring about her, and Harry's still just the one that's like, I don't want to tell that. But he does have a really touching moment with Molly later, where he's telling her, you've got to tell your folks. And she's like, I can't deal with seeing the heartbreak in my dad's eyes when I do it. And he's like, well, you're going to tell, and I'm going to be there with you. And it's, again, a touching moment where Harry's like, you may not be my apprentice anymore, but I'm still your friend. I'm still your friend, and I'm going to be there for you when you do that. So, again, the growth between those two remains phenomenal. I still don't want them to be a couple, so stop it. Yeah. Sonia and Butters. I've said that Sonia is a character that I've grown to truly just love over the course of the series. He was always an odd man out of the Knights when I first met him, but over time I've really grown to love him. And I said I really wanted to see some stuff with him and Butters, see how Butters' Jedi Knight training is going. And they're sparring, and Sonya asks him to use his lightsaber blade, basically against his sword to see what happens. Butters is afraid he's just going to sever it, right? But he uses it, and it works. But it slides down the hilt, and he thinks he's cut off Sonya's hand. And Sonya plays it up and F's with all of them. But it turns out that the blade can only hurt monsters. It cannot hurt humans. And you think, well, that isn't a big deal. You're only going to be hurting monsters with it anyway. But it's either Harry or Michael that bring up the point. Yeah, but if say that a demon just decides to hire a human heavy to attack you, well, you're pretty much screwed. So Butters is going to have to learn how to do more than just swing a lightsaber, I think, is what this is foretelling us a little bit here. But good stuff right away about the sword. I wanted to know a little bit more, not only about the whole lightsaber side of it. So these are good questions, and I think that these are things that Butcher just thinks about. Well, is it an actual real lightsaber? Is Butters going to accidentally drop it, and it's just going to drop through the planet? That's kind of questions that we've had about Star Wars lightsabers forever. What's going to stop it if you drop it by accident or something? So nice little answer there. And that's kind of where it leaves us. Before the reception begins and Harry meets with the other wizards, they go over standard operating procedure, and Harry meets with Laura, who decides he's going to introduce her to Eitri. He's the king of the Svartalfs. So things are tense, but Eitri does agree to meet with her, and Harry decides, hey, I'm going to go get some food. And that's when he runs into, I think as he puts it, a goddamn Sasquatch. I knew right away, everybody told me I was supposed to read these Bigfoot short stories, because this character named River Soldiers, I think. I didn't know what a lot was going on here. There's a lot of references that they bring up, so guys, yeah, you're right. I should have read that. I don't know that it really robbed me of anything in the story, but I feel like it's one of those things where I just did my Dark Tower video where I said you don't have to read the rest of the Stephen King universe to get the Dark Tower, but it's so much more rewarding when you do. So yeah, I feel like there's definitely some backstory I've got to catch up on here, and this has actually encouraged me to do it sooner rather than later. So I plan to do those before Battleground. So take it easy on me. So Laura catches up with Harry after she talks with Eitri, and basically Eitri, I'm going to say Eitri half the time and Eitri half the time. Eitri, he refuses to meet her halfway, basically. But she does find out that Thomas will be transferred from the Svartalfs embassy into the building that they're at now, which is Marcone's building. So she tells Harry that she's cashing in her second favor, and he's going to help her. And I don't think really she had to do that. Harry was going to help her regardless. Just now he's kind of bound to do it. But at least now he can be like, hey, it was Mav's bidding. But again, this can all blow up and cause a big... And right here I'm thinking, well, this is going to be what Battleground is about, right? He's going to screw up here, and it's going to cause a war. Not so fast, my friend. But Harry tells Murphy the situation, and in perfect Murphy fashion, she starts sawing off her casts and says that she's going to come help. And I thought, okay, this is going to end badly. But she does say at one point she was due to get the cast off in 4 days. Okay, so she's not doing anything that crazy. This isn't like The Rock in Fast 5, like flexing his muscle to take his cast off or nothing. Which, that'd be a totally Murphy thing to do, right? Anyway, so Harry tries to stop her. And she does her usual thing of being like, I'm doing this. It's just your choice if you want to help me or not. But then they have like a really, really touching moment after she gets the cast off. And Harry, carries her to the bathtub and rinses her wounds and stuff like that. Just cleans her up. And it's just a really, really touching moment. Like I said, they don't even have to use any dialogue, and you still feel it right here. And they do share their first I love yous. And again, it never feels corny, at least to me. I enjoyed it. So I don't think there's any cringe in it there. So Goodman Gray, that's who Harry hired to keep surveillance on Justine earlier. He says that there are numerous parties watching her, so obviously there's something to consider. I don't feel like we get a real resolution to that this book, so I imagine we'll be getting it in the next one. But they head to Wraith Manor to meet with Laura and Freitas. And Freitas and Murphy kind of throw down, so we have to establish that Murphy's still a badass here. She may be slower than she used to, but she can still throw down if she has to. But what's really funny about it is it really turns Freitas on. And Freitas is like super, super attracted to Murphy. And Murphy, I feel like, is the character that nothing can faze her, right? I think back to when Kincaid first met her, and he was saying all these really like sexual things to her, and it didn't faze her really at all. And Freitas kind of flusters her a little bit, and even says that she doesn't mind sharing, with Harry. It's just a fun moment. Again, the kind of things I feel like it makes Dresden Files fun. But Murphy tells Laura of the plan to break Thomas out, since she worked in that building during her time with Marcone in the Aftermath short story. But she explains that the strong rooms are in the basement, and you'll need a way out before you go in and know how to get out. So this is when you have the thing where you have the kind of the storytelling narrative where you see something that's happening in real time, and then it'll flash back to Murphy saying this is what the part of the plan is, and then it'll go back to real time. Something I think is can be confusing to some people, but I love it. I thought it was a really, really neat way to write it, bouncing back and forth between real time and Murphy explaining the plan. But on the day of the summit, Harry arrives and the other wardens, and Harry talks to Ramirez about his injury. And he talks about how he was in a wheelchair. So I've got to read this story and find out what jacked him up. So I believe it's Bombshell. I think someone told me it's in Bombshell. Find out what messed Ramirez up this bad, because he's not his usual fun-loving self either. He's very, very jaded. And obviously, like I said, he's walking with a cane now. So finally at book 16, though, Butcher does make the "You're a wizard, Harry" reference. I've been waiting for it since book 1. I did my very first video for Dresden Files way back. It was either my Why I Decided to Read, or it was for Stormfront, where I said, does anybody else reading these books keep waiting to say, "You're a wizard, Harry"? And everyone was like, oh, it's nothing like Harry Potter. I didn't really think it was anything like Harry Potter. It's just I hear a wizard and I hear Harry. It's hard for me not to hear that line, I had a friend who went as Hagrid for Halloween one year, and to the day we still say, "You're a wizard, Harry," every time you see him, and he hates it. So that's why we do it, because that's what guy friends do. But anyway, I'm glad that he finally made that reference there. But Freitas and Harry fake a fight to gain access into the gym for him and Laura. And it turns out they're going down the dumbwaiter shaft, which if you watch that trailer, you saw in the fun little Spider-Man reference. But Laura's elbow touches Harry once, and it kind of burns, which is the whole thing about that means that he's loved. And I don't want to say it's like a little bit of jealousy from Laura, but she is like, oh, you and the policewoman, huh? And she does seem kind of smug about it. Yeah, it's a good little thing. I mean, I've been waiting for 10 books now for these kids to get together. Now they finally are. So I'm expecting Butcher to totally Joss Whedon me here and either kill Murphy or make her go evil. One or the other. That's what I'm waiting for, because that's just what they like to do to us. But Laura distracts the guard while Harry searches for Thomas, and he finds Thomas in his old laboratory. This building was built on top of his old apartment building, and he finds the hatchway that he used to go talk with in the lab with Bob and mix his potions and stuff. So Thomas is in there, And he's totally just beaten. He's just had the shit beat out of him. He's totally like emaciated, where obviously his hunger has been feeding, and there's nothing for him to feed off, so it's feeding off of him. So it's killing him. It's killing him. So Harry gives him and Lara and himself some kind of glamour potion that makes it where basically they're not invisible, but it makes you like super uninteresting, where no one will even like look at you, and they're just gonna walk right out the front door. And I'm thinking, it's like True Lies. What's your plan? I'm just gonna walk out the front door. Ballsy, stupid, but ballsy. These are the things I think about. Outside, a truck arrives and guns down the entrance guards. Out of it comes King Corb, who is king of the Fomor. And I'm like, well, this isn't exactly how I would imagine you would arrive to a peace treaty discussion. Doesn't make a lot of sense, right? But then a new figure shows up from out of this truck, hooded and cloaked, and even the king kneels before this entity and calls this thing the power behind the throne. But they enter the summit, and he throws the head of Gwyn ap Nudd. That is the king of one of the subnations of Fairy. I had to look that up. At Mab's feet. I think that's all the way back in Summer Night. So yes, I had to look that up. But Corb calls it a peace offering, and Mab growls that he needs to explain himself. He gets really nasty and raw and basically tells her, you're just an old woman past your prime. And then the cloaked woman uses some sort of power that just seems to just flick Mab through like a couple of walls, like it's no big deal whatsoever. This freaks everyone out. We're like, wow, okay. I think it's even one of the ghouls actually says, the only reason that we were part of the Accord is because we were scared of Mab, and that thing just showed up and just like a flea. So you want a display of power, you got one here. So you know that this is serious business. But she pulls down her cloak, and Harry sees that she must be some kind of goddess due to the aura that she's giving off. And I think this is confirmed because he looks over at Odin and sees he's got like clenched fists and he's ready to throw down. Odin looks pretty pissed. But she taunts Odin, saying that he is reduced to consorting with mortals now, and she is revealed to be, I say, Ithnu. If that's not proper, again, I don't know. But this is the last Titan. And she tells Odin to choose to stand aside or to burn along with the humans. And she makes another display of power, which she like screams. It's basically like a giant EMP, electromagnetic pulse, that just blacks out Chicago. So they take off. All electronics are useless. Like I said, then after that, there's just chaos everywhere. The ghouls try to bail, and John Marcone stands up, and he's like, where the heck do you think you're going? And the only he could say, basically, just matter of factly, so basically says, where are you going? You are part of the Accords, and if you were going to flee, that just makes you cowards. And again, there's a reason you can see Marcone is the only human as part of these Accords, because that dude fears nothing. He's up in these guys' faces, and he pretty much leads the charge in assembling a resistance against the Ithnu and the Fomor. So Marcone, he's earning his paycheck here. This is basically his house, as he puts it. I mean, he even lipped off the Ithnu there, and basically it's like, who are you? You're in my house, So yeah, Marcone, he don't fear anything, and that's what I love about him. But Mab does return. She's all busted up. Her body parts are like popping back in and stuff. It's creepy. But she states that the outer gates are under attack, and Harry deduces that the Fomor and the Outsiders are in this thing together. So just when it looks like that everything was about to fall apart with the peace talks, it looks like it's time to get together and be like, hey, we got to band up and take these things out. So that's kind of where we stand there. Harry suggests that he takes care of his current task ASAP as Marcone starts to set up like a command center for this whole resistance. But Harry meets with the group back at the Water Beetle, and he's confronted once again by Ebenezer, who is pissed. He's like on a floating rock or something. But he tells him he can't let him do this. Take after they've gotten Thomas out. And again, that he's going to be off the council. He's going to be hunted down. He's going to be killed for this. And Harry says he's tired of being told that he needs to learn from Ebenezer's mistakes. And that obviously does not go down well. He tells him to get on the boat while he deals with Ebenezer. And they basically throw down here. It is a huge fight. And it's one of those kind of things where I've said this in the past, and I don't know how current generations feel about this. In my generation, it was always that thing about you don't call the old man out. Because no matter how young you are, how physically fit you are, how much you think you know, the old man's always going to kick your ass because he knows more than you, no matter what. I've always felt that way. And this applies for grandparents too. No matter how old they are, they're always going to kick your ass because they know more than you do. And that's how it feels here. It never really feels like Harry has a chance in this. But there's a long fight. Harry's down. Ebenezer demands to know what the vamps have on him, that he's willing to go take it this far, and he can help him get out of this. And that's when Harry tells him the truth, that Thomas is his half-brother. And this absolutely crushes Ebenezer. He cannot process this. His hatred for vampires is way too strong. He is not ready to process this. This feels like telling your parents that you have basically someone of a different religion as someone you want to marry or something like that. That's how it kind of feels to me here with the way that he reacts. But there's a point where he mentioned this God, what was it, like some kind of ring that Molly had given him, and he had put it by his shoe. And this is when it looks like Ebenezer had accidentally shot Harry through the chest with like a comet. And I'm like, Jim, you really killing Harry again? It feels a little too soon to do this again. But then we see it's kind of like the whole Last Jedi thing, but done right, where he had been kind of projecting with this ring, and he's actually on the water beetle getting away. But he's obviously very destroyed over what just happened, that Ebenezer was willing to go this far over it. He's just crushed. And Murphy talks to him and makes him promise that the two of them will talk when cooler heads are revealed. And he does, but it's to me at a point where I'm like, it just feels almost like the point of no return between those two. It's just crushing. I hated seeing it. I loved reading it, but I hated seeing it, Again, I don't like it when family fights. But Murphy gets him to swear as they're headed to the island, which, by the way, I don't think I mentioned. The island is the one place where Harry thinks he can keep Thomas safe and save his life. So they're headed to Demon Reach, and Murphy makes him swear. Also, basically, don't pull any of your "I was protecting you" crap and try to leave me on the island while you go back to fight the Fomor. And so he does, even though he knows that he could probably end up losing her in this fight. But still, he does promise, and that feels like the heaviest helping of foreshadowing Butcher has ever done. At Demon Reach, he meets with Alfred. Is that really what we're calling him? Alfred? Because I feel like he called him that once as kind of a thing. I didn't think it was actually sticking, but he calls him Alfred, so I'm like, okay, I guess that's just his name now. Like I said, I've almost been thinking of him like Swamp Thing. So Alfred, okay, that works. But he asks him to lock Thomas up, and that will put Thomas and his hunger in like a stasis until he can figure out what to do. It's because it's the only way to save his life. But it's going to hurt him. It's going to hurt him bad, because you don't go in these cells. It's not just like you go into jail and you're just like in a box and it's like, ugh. It's painful. It's very, very painful. He tells him how much it's going to hurt him. But he's going to suffer, but that's the only way to save him. And obviously Laura's not happy about this, basically from her end. She just saw Thomas dissolve. She thought that Harry had done something. So she goes after Harry with knives. He's able to subdue her. Freitas actually has Murphy with a knife to her throat. Murphy does her usual badass thing. She has a grenade. She pulls the pin. And so Freitas bails off the boat and before the grenade can explode. But he's able to subdue her too. After cooler heads prevail, he tells her what's going on. And Laura asks Harry, do you have a way to save him? Or was this just something you did until you could figure it out? And he just flat out says, I don't know. I really don't know. And that's kind of where we stick with the whole Thomas thing. So we successfully pulled off the heist, but don't really know where we're going from there. At this point, it's time to shift all your thinking to Ethnu and the Fomor. So Harry asks Alfred, hey, does size matter when it comes to this prison? So if I bring you this Titan, do you think you can lock it up? And basically Alfred says, size matters not, right? But basically he says, if you can get her to the shores, yeah, I can do my thing. So Harry hits the armory and he takes the knife or the Holy Lance and the placard. I mentioned the placard in the last one. I don't really know exactly what it does. But Harry confesses to Murphy that he's not really sure if what he did can save Thomas. It's just kind of a waiting thing until he figures it out. And they talk about the Fomor and Ethnu and plotting the whole supernatural world versus the mortal world, and them going to war pretty much as credits roll. And that's where we end, guys. Like I said, it feels like part one of a mid-season finale, and they're going to come back in May sweeps and hit us with the ending. So lots to unpack for such a small book. Really, I just went off the notes I took while I was reading the book, like I have with all these things here. So I didn't hit everything like Harry, conjuring the spiders and stuff like that. So the whole Starborn stuff, I know that a lot of people are going to drop in the comments about the Starborn stuff. I saw these things. I'm just trying to keep this review under an hour here, So I saw these things, and I want to talk about them here in my final thoughts. Obviously, Starborn stuff. I don't know a ton about that. I don't know a ton about why Ebenezer's so damn pissed off this whole book. Like I said, I don't know if that's something I missed in one of the short stories. I really don't know, and once I started looking at that, I fell down this rabbit hole of all these people suggesting that Ebenezer is Cowell. And I was like, wow, I don't know about that. I don't feel like he's ever really wanted to hurt Harry, at least not before this book. And in this book, he didn't feel like he wanted to. Obviously, felt like he had no other choice. So the Ebenezer stuff, obviously, is the biggest question that I have from this. Is it beyond repair with these two? Because it feels like it. It really does. But I am glad that Butcher is deciding to keep going to that well of using just ancient mythologies, not just the Greek and the Norse, but also Irish mythology with Ethnu and the Fomor. But expanding the Ethnu with that is really cool, because it makes me wonder if Baelor is ever going to show up, which is actually in the actual lore that is her father. I'd be interested to see where he takes that. How much of the, actual lore does he use? Because a lot of times it seems like he pulls some characters out and he kind of does his own thing, but he still stays true to it. So we'll see. What's going to become of Thomas? That's obviously the big one. I obviously don't think we're going to get an answer to that in the next book. I think this is a good way to have him sit out for Battleground and have that be what happens next after Battleground. I think the book after that's supposed to be called Mirror, Mirror, I believe. If you've seen the old Star Trek episode that Butcher references with Mirror, Mirror, maybe I'll get into that after I do Battleground. We'll get into some theories and stuff about what Mirror, Mirror could possibly mean in the Star Trek connotations to it. That's too deep to get into here. But what does the placard actually do? I said in my last video, going back to Sunday school here, using my knowledge from that, I believe that is the sign that said Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, that they put on the cross after his crucifixion. But what does it actually do? I felt like in the last video I figured out what the Holy Lance does in making Harry always victorious, but I don't know what the placard's going to do. And obviously Harry's figured it out. I don't see he just took it and said, hey, maybe this will come in handy. I feel like he's already figured this out. So that's a big mystery there. I'm not sure what the end game's going to be. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I'm sure I'll think of a ton more over the course. Now that I have to wait, like everyone else, 77 days until Battleground here. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I enjoyed the book immensely. Yes, it felt like a part one of a part two. I went into this knowing that, so I couldn't be upset, especially when, it's just over 2 months away for the next book. So that's fine. That's fine. I've got lots to read between then and now, so I will have no problem waiting. I was fortunate enough that I was able to binge the first 16 books in 6 months. I feel very fortunate for that. And hopefully now it feels like Butcher is back on his writing schedule. So I don't think that Mirror, Mirror comes out any later than 2022 at this point. So I feel like we're back on course here. And I'm ever grateful I didn't have to do that wait. But guys, what did you think about Peace Talks? Did it meet your expectations? Were you left wanting more? I feel like I'm hungry for more, but I don't feel dissatisfied. Does that make sense? So hit me in the comments, guys. Let me know what you thought about Peace Talks. I will talk to you there.